Evening for those that are tuning in a different time zone than Berlin. Right now, I'm actually in Berlin. So it's four just past 4 p.m. My name is Sasha, and we were doing these streams for promoting the hackathon happening in 1 week now. The hackathon being the Blockspace Synergy Hackathon happening July 16 to 18 in Funkhaus, Berlin. And we started last week streaming. The first stream we had was just kind of an overview of what you can expect at the hackathon. And we then had another stream on Friday where we featured two of our partners. A quick recap on that is we talked about the different bounties you can hunt in addition to the main track. So for those that are new or tuning in, just recently learning about the hackathon and maybe interested in signing up, the way the hackathon works is there's $20,000 in the main track for projects that are submitting basically any idea that they feel is worthy to continue building after the hackathon. So the scope is pretty large. We're looking for teams that are using different technologies in interesting ways. We're looking for teams that are solving really important problems using Web3, and teams that are shipping projects that could be common good and continue to be maintained post-hackathon. But in addition to the main track, there's partner bounties. So those partner bounties are enticing teams to also include partner technologies into their main track submissions. This is very different than last year, where last year we only had one big prize pool where everyone competed for it. And with that said, on Friday, we talked about the expectations the Inc. team has with their bounties. So they have $10,000 in additional bounties to the main track prize pool. And Hyperbridge, their bounty is really looking for the best use of their SDK for storage queries. So if you haven't been too in tune with what Hyperbridge is doing, listen back to the stream that we had on last Friday. And hopefully that'll give you all the details that you're looking for if you're interested in building anything cross-chain as part of this hackathon. So I want to quickly also share a little bit of news before we invite our special guests today. Actually, this stream is really, really exciting because it's the first stream where we're inviting past hackathon winners. So from last year's hackathon, we had 4 of the best teams were selected to continue building their projects post-hackathon. And we have one of these teams actually with us. They'll share about their experiences and also dive into how to build front ends for Polkadot applications with best tips and advice on that. So I won't spoil it more. I'll be bringing them on in just a few. But before that, I just wanted to share my screen and give you guys just to kind of emphasize what it is that you need to know. Where is all this information about the hackathon? So we actually just updated our events page. So if you go to the Blockspace Synergy Luma page, you will find this, and you will notice that I have updated. So this is this link here. Check it out. It's lu.ma/Blockspace Synergy. Why Synergy? We talked about this a little bit on Friday, but the TLDR here, guys, is that we have added new partners, and this is where you will see new partner bounties. So I don't want to talk about it too much on this session, but Solana is going to be putting in $2,500 as part of the bounties offered by partners. So that's really exciting. And the other thing that I just want to point to you guys on this page, so this details all of the expectations for submitting to the main track and how it works, right? So, we are looking for teams that are submitting to the main track that are most likely to be successful, but really most likely to be shipping a real MVP as part of this hackathon, because we then offer support post-hackathon for the winning teams to ship their second milestone. So this is what this part details. If there's any questions, we do have a chat too. I can share a link where you need to be to have all the information about the hackathon. We have our Telegram chat. Telegram chat, yes. So that's here. It's gonna be, yeah, you can head right here if you have any questions about the hackathon. This is where it's happening on our Telegram community chat. So just to finish on this page, the Q&A is really where all the like a lot of useful information is for you guys. So everything from like how does the price system work to like do I need to bring my own tent? Keep an eye on the updates here, and we also added scholarships. So this is where you want to be to be informed about all of the updates that we're putting together. So, who's excited to learn about some best tips and practices from some very experienced hackers? I think the people we're going to have on here today are not only experienced in terms of like hacking things, and I know from firsthand and seeing their work over the last few years, but also very experienced developers in the Polkadot ecosystem. So without further ado, I'm going to invite on the stage Josep and Victor from the PAPI team. So here we go, if this works. Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good, thanks for having us.
Yeah, so where are you guys tuning in from, actually? I think you guys are a pretty international, decentralized team, right?
Yeah, well.
Oh, nice. Okay, so...
we're working together just today in Barcelona.
In Barcelona, nice. So Victor, if Josep like says something like wrong or whatever, you can just nudge him under the table, right? Nice. Guys, welcome to the stream. You know, this is a new thing that we're doing at Web0. We're trying to build culture and community whereby for developers and builders in Web3 in general. But as you guys know, we do focus a lot on the Polkadot ecosystem. And so, this stream, really, I want this to be a place where builders like you guys can share your experiences and what you're working on, as well as other builders in the audience can be asking questions. So that's actually a note to the audience, anyone listening right now. We're gonna first of all like learn from Victor and Josep how their experience was at the hackathon. I'll be asking some questions, and then we're gonna go into like what they are working on and if they can provide us tips with building front ends in Polkadot. Because yes, these are the winners of last year's hackathon, but they're also the people behind PAPI. So PAPI it's the Polkadot API. It is the go-to kind of more future-proof library for building front ends for Polkadot blockchains and in the Polkadot ecosystem. So without going into everything, I just wanted to give an arc for our audience. Victor, tell us how your experience was at last year's hackathon at Web3 Summit.
Yep, sure. So first of all, I want to say that it was great. Like it was a really good experience in general. There were so many teams, and we got to meet so many people on the ecosystem that work there, and they all worked really hard, and we all collaborated in some way to each other, which was really nice. I just want to say, like, first and foremost, it was like an extremely great experience. But then, of course, also there was the work part, right? Like we go there to hack something, to work on something. And last year we came as a team of 4 people already pre-made, and we decided to work on a project called PAPI Actions, which in a nutshell it was to create some sort of like a prototype for a standard of having essentially what is a collection of dApps that you could sort of like pre-program what actions do you want to do, and this would generate a URL that then you would publish to share with other people so that they can perform that action for you. So this was an interesting idea. Like to give you an example, like we on that hackathon we built 2 different PAPI actions. One was to perform XCM transfers between between two chains, and another one was to delegate staking. I'm sorry, to delegate governance votes. So the idea is that you would say like, okay, I want to generate a link, so that anyone that clicks on that link.
Pause on just to interrupt you, so we can kind of go through things like one by one. First of all, I was trying to look at what you guys submitted. I can find it. I just need a second. But if you guys know where it is, that will be easier. I want to see the PAPI action so we can show the audience like what you guys actually built. But before we go into like what you built, I'll find the link. Tell us about like just you guys were going into this hackathon with a specific goal in mind, perhaps. I remember you guys were like very much hands down. I think you did have very specific targets. Maybe this is where Joseph comes in as a kind of. I know you're the kind of like wizard of like, okay, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. I think you did have a lot of like goals that you wanted to achieve with the project that you built. But I want to hear from you guys from the perspective of like giving hackers that are going to participate at this hackathon tips. For instance, are you setting accurate expectations of what you can do in 3 days? How do you approach like the technical feasibility of your what you aspire to build? Is it really even possible? Do you then submit like research instead? Like step us through maybe, Joseph, what your insight is on that for tips for hackers.
Yeah, so my number one tip is sure, like dream big, but try to find a way to add value iteratively, right? Like otherwise you may find yourself the last day and freaking out because you cannot demo anything, right? So if you can find ways to add value little by little by starting with something very simple that to keep improving, that's my number one advice. We tried to do that, but even if we tried to do that, we still struggle a little bit just because, well, it's a hackathon, right? And developers, we tend to be over optimistic about how much we will be able to deliver in a few hours. So yeah, expanding a little bit into what Victor said, I just wanted to say that for us it was a great experience because last year the library had just when the hackathon started, the stable release of the library had been recently released, and we had this idea of like, okay, we're going to create like these SDKs, but it would be awesome if for these SDKs we have something to show them, which is these actions that Victor was explaining. So probably the only regret is that after the hackathon, we kept investing quite a lot in the SDKs, and we improved the SDKs a lot. But the actions themselves, we couldn't. We realized that it was more difficult to, like, we needed more resources basically. But yeah, like the SDKs have matured quite a lot, and we keep improving them. And if someone wants to participate in this hackathon, actually we'll be able to use probably one of the SDKs that we have built. Well, mostly Victor has built is the Ink SDK. But maybe we can talk about that later.
So this is interesting. This is interesting because I think, you guys were a very specific type of team that came to this hackathon, whereby you're not like the only ones really, but there's other teams that like already have an existing product that they're building or library, and in your case, yes, you guys are building PAPI. I mean, so by the way, just for the sake of completeness here, the audience that doesn't know PAPI, I'm just going to pull up the doc, but I don't want to go.
Oh, by the way, I sent you the submission that we did last year.
Oh yeah, cool.
But it's maybe not that.
We'll look at it. But yeah, so stop. One sec.
Well, you look at that.
What I want to say, guys, is like, or I want to hear your insight. Yes, you are a team where you have a product, you have a library, and so you're coming to this hackathon with the goal of maybe creating a new feature or more, like some new functionality or something. But you set yourself a specific goal. Like again, like you're not allowed to submit stuff that you've done before the hackathon. So step us through,
That's
like
right.
how did you go about deciding what you were going to be building? And
so last year we had different ideas, right? Like on one end, because PAPI tries to be very, very modular, right? Like in Polkadot.js, you have like these derives and stuff, but we didn't want to embed like the derives inside the main library. So what we wanted to do is like to keep the library modular, and then for these kind of domain specific logic for that needs to perhaps interact with several palettes, or that logic that needs to know about the inside outs of specific palettes. We wanted to put that into these things that we call Polkadot API SDKs, that are these things that sit on top of the core library. So the core library, it works for any chain with any runtime, as long as it's metadata 14 or onwards, and it's going to give you really good typings, but it's agnostic about the actual inner workings of each palette, right? So on one end, we wanted to kind of build like these SDKs for common palette functionalities. And on one end, and on the other end, we wanted to explore this idea of defining kind of standardized actions, right? Like I just want to send, right? Like I just want to send this token there to this chain and just figure out the best route. Or like this was one action. The other action is like I want to delegate, right? And handle all the complexity that it is to delegate. And actually, like it's interesting because I think the team that got second place or third place, they did basically more or less the same stuff that we don't delegate, but in a much more professional way. Right? Like ours was like focusing on the bare bones, and they put all the focus there, and it was very nice because we got to collaborate quite a lot, and we never copied the code or anything like that, but we could give them a lot of advice. So like what I'm trying to say is that we don't go there with intent of like, oh, if I help you, like you're going to like. For us, it's all more important to empower builders than anything else. So yeah, and this year we don't know what we're going to do, to be honest. We are still thinking about it. But yeah, I think at least for us, last year was like a super cool experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah, what you just described, like you guys went in there knowing like, okay, there's a cool thing we can add to the library. Let's use the hackathon to do that. And then not only that, you're also with your neighbors, the team that built Delegate that you mentioned. Well, maybe are building similar things, and you get to help them and also learn from what they want to do. And in the end, what you submitted. So by the way, guys, this is PAPI actions. This is what Victor and Giuseppe submitted. Where yes, it's basically like I'm going to dumb this down and correct me if I'm butchering it, but it's packaging what the PAPI library already offers in a really easy way that is very user-centric. So in this case, yes, we just want to do one thing, and it's like, well, this send dot action. Under the hood, it might be doing a lot of like multi-chain hopping around, but the user just wants to do from A to B, and that's how the user sees it. It doesn't see
exactly. So you create an action, and then that action generates a URL, and then when you pass it, like anyone can apply that action. Yes.
So here, this is the other flow is delegation, which is a really it's like a perfect example of what the solution you're solving, I think, right? Because to delegate, you need to do so many cross or multiple hops of transactions. And here,
yeah,
like see if it works, guys. I'm impressed that it's still running. It's great.
I'm shocked that it's still running because we haven't updated in a long time, and there have been several random upgrades. I was like, I didn't. I'm quite surprised that it actually works. But yeah, like yeah. So oops.
Yeah. Okay.
We have not been maintaining it, but we'll upgrade it soon. But it was working last year.
No, that's okay. So
no, that's a good point. We should have, yeah.
last few words on like, and then let's. I want to talk about some more PAPI specific stuff. But anyone watching right now, if you guys have any questions for Josep and Victor on tips or something like this that from their experience at the hackathon, now's the time to ask. I want to ask you guys what closing thoughts on like I think the big one is like setting expectations on what you can actually build in 3 days. And I think I remember you guys also having like, you had big ambitions to continue building things, and then you realize like you just don't have the time and capacity. So how do you and any comments on that basically?
We kept on building the underlying SDKs, and we kept improving them. The actions themselves, we didn't have enough bandwidth, which is why we never claimed the second. Also, it almost felt like it was having double dipping, because like we're the treasury is funding for the SDKs. The treasury wasn't funding for these, but that's why we never claimed like the second half of the price. But we realized at the point in time that we were at, we need to focus more on creating like the basic SDKs to enable others to build on top of it. And Delegate is actually a really good example. It's like, okay, like if we give them the right building blocks, there are teams that are going to do it a lot better than us in terms of like so we kept on building that, but the actions themselves, the team also last year was 4. At some point we reduced to number 3, so we also had to adapt like the scope of our work. And yes, so in a way we kept on working on what was powering this idea, but it was over ambitious to try to go farther basically.
You guys are kind of an anomaly, yeah. Like, so for the audience, like the PAPI team is actively working on it on their library. They use the hackathon to try new ideas out, but they have a roadmap, they have a priority. And to be honest, like one of the things I was hoping to see is other teams or people in the ecosystem would pick up what you guys built at the hackathon, knowing that, it's not going to be your priority.
That was our hope, and in a way it happened, but not as much as we would have liked it. So, but that was actually the core idea, to demonstrate that this is possible. We have created a proof of concept, like this is doable. If someone wants to take this work and make it and run with it, we'll be super happy to support them. To an extent, it happened a little bit, but not.
Yeah, how do you think we can actually bridge this gap, right? Whereby maybe from this hackathon there'll be really good projects, but teams won't be able to like commit their time fully. Do we need like I don't know, more advocacy on the forum posts? What do you think?
I am humble enough to. I'm not super humble. I'm humble enough to know that I don't have a good answer to this question. To be honest. I'm sorry. Like it's the truth. Like I don't know.
Victor, have you seen this being done in any other open source communities? Where there's projects that are really good, but the maintainers are just kind of not available to. And I asked this like not just like for what you guys built last year, but in general, right? Like there's a lot of great projects that are going to come from this hackathon that. We want to encourage people to maybe collaborate. So my answer, by the way, just I don't have a very good answer to this, but I know my answer is I'm gonna do my best to connect teams and connect people during the hackathon, so that at least they have met the right people to see if there's interest in continuing to like maintain a specific project.
Absolutely, and we will be there to help with that issue.
So the whole thing is synergy, right, guys? This actually like it gives a good example to what the type of synergies we want to find. There's projects that are gonna find a cool idea and then like drop it, but hopefully they will actually connect with other projects that want to maybe collaborate with them. And so I think I'll leave it at that. We've come to sort of the point where I want to switch gears, and I want to hear about what you guys are working on, and pretend like we've never met before. So, but don't take me from the top. Just tell me what it is that you're most passionate about and what you actually are shipping as developers in the Polkadot ecosystem.
So, well, like the main component is the library itself, right? It's Polkadot API. This is a library that you use to communicate with a chain and consume, either like query the storage or do runtime calls or send transactions and so on. The things that we are more passionate about now is with the SDKs that we're building, and we've been talking about it with them. So yeah, like this is a good moment to show the docs. So like in general, here at the docs, you will find first like the core of the library, which is like how do you get started with PAPI and so on. But then there's a section on the left-hand side, I think it's more towards the bottom, which talks about the SDKs themselves. So you can see here that, we have PAPI SDKs, we have Ink SDKs, Governance SDK, and we have more SDKs that we are currently building. So we will update the docs to have them. But essentially, like these SDKs are the part that actually makes building domain-specific applications easier, because it abstracts away a lot of complexities that when you want to build something with Ink, you have to deal with, right? So on the Ink SDK, we have just recently, like I think that last month, we released the last version on the Revive SDK. So the Revive was a new palette, and it brings AVM compatibility and things like that, and these added like a lot of complexity. So if you use this Ink SDK, essentially, it's like, okay, I have here a contract with this contract metadata and so on, and it's deployed in this address. So, just let me, send a message to this contract to perform an action, or let me see what's the outcome of this of this call and things like that. It's on a level which is much easier to use, rather than just querying directly to the palette itself.
So let's like not jump too far ahead, and I want to hone in on the Ink stuff specifically. But before doing that, I want to kind of give the audience an overview from the perspective of, okay, I want to be building applications in Polkadot. What do I use for a front end library? And the answer, like that, I mean, I don't think it is. I'm seeing a lot more people turning away from Polkadot.js API, and PAPI being the go-to. So for those like listening, like, yes, the go-to, if you're building applications, front-end applications in Polkadot, the go-to is PAPI. It's what we're looking at here. And so the PAPI team, like you guys have this. I like the docs. It's like very like concise and succinct. But at the bottom here, you can actually see things that are built with PAPI. Guys, I just suggest to let's look at a few things that are actually built with PAPI, and then I mean, from your perspective as developers building the library, I can understand that you might not have much to say, but I think it's cool to see like the types of projects that are built. What should I pick? Yeah, so I don't know.
You can see here that there's like two sections. There's PAPI apps, which are apps that we have developed, and there's also Build with PAPI, which is like external teams that have developed with PAPI. So we have both of them.
Any suggestions on which ones we look at?
Maybe as a regular bounties, like Polkadot bounties. That's a good one, because like this is an app that you can click there on because like this is the open, like everything that we built is open source. You can check how it's built and so on.
I'm going to share this.
So this is an app that essentially just shows the bounties for a specific chain. So here we are on Polkadot, and then it lets curators handle payouts for their bounties and so on. It's quite complete. Like there are multiple bounty curators that are actively using this, and they are giving feedback to us, which is really nice. And
this is nice. Yeah. So I can create a bounty with this also.
Exactly.
And child bounties.
Sorry?
Sorry, I was just saying you can child bounties and manage payout. Well, I'll let Victor explain. Sorry, but yeah, you can do pretty much anything really with bounties. You can do it here.
Exactly. And if the ones that are technically curious on how is this built, and they look at the code, you will see that this is using the governance SDK that has a bounty, a bounty specific SDK that handles all of these a bit easier for all of them. But essentially, like in here, you can see all of the states of the bounty. It can also, so for instance, like this bounty, it now looked into the actual referenda that is approving this bounty and things like that.
This is it's really cool to look at, because there's obviously been the design is really simple, and it's serving a very specific purpose. And I think we need to see more of these kinds of applications out there. It's like there's no bells and whistles. It's very much around to do like, what does the user expect when they want to be learning about bounties or actually managing their bounties on chain.
So if I can add something about this, so the way that we developed this dApp in particular was basically to highlight the usage of on how the different SDKs can be combined to build something quite powerful. But we did it in a way that, for instance, you may have noticed that perhaps it took a little bit longer to load. That's because it uses the light client, because we make sure that things are usable and are working with the light client. So but we did it in a way that it's kind of like a template for anyone to take this, and if they want to integrate it into, I don't know, Subscan, or they want to integrate it in Subsquare, or they can just basically take our work, which is kind of white label. We call this kind of dApps a white label dApp, right? It's like, okay, like it's like it doesn't have any assumed styles or anything. It's just like the core functionality is here, so that if you want to take it and put it anywhere else, you're free to do so. Like it's MIT, it's like, or if you just want to port it to another, like whatever, like, but everything is there. And if you want to show like kind of another dApp that we didn't do, but I'm super proud of it. Like I haven't checked it in a few weeks now, but it's KeopSwap. And I'm super proud. I mean, I'm super proud of this one because KeopSwap, like we didn't know Keops. We didn't know this developer. He's a developer from Talisman. And one day, all of a sudden, when we hadn't launched V1 yet, and he was like, "Hey, I just built this with PAPI, with your library, and it's awesome." I was like, "What? You did that all?" Like it was like, wow, like this is insane, right? Like it was like a really cool product, and he has been iterating. He has been giving us feedback. There's not a single line of code there that comes from us, and I don't know, like it like when you see someone that you don't know at all, and they take your library and build with it. I mean, these are
That's cool.
there are more, and we have to update it because I know that there are more tools and libraries using Code API. But yeah, like if we had to show like one built by us and one built by someone else, I think this would be the two.
Yeah. So I want to take you guys out of the kind of core library developer space and share your insight. If you're building a dApp with PAPI, like what are the things you're going to really just think about in terms of like, yeah, what you're shipping, what you're actually developing for the end user? And perhaps we can look at an example of ones that you think did a particularly good job. But I bring this to the table because for this hackathon next week, I really want people to go in there thinking about the right things and how to be most successful and not get maybe too distracted with a very overcomplicated UI, or I don't know. What are your tips in this department?
So for me, like this is very personal. Like things that I think of are making the dApp resilient, and for me, this means that hopefully, well, ideally, should work with the light client first, and then if you want the user to allow the user to put an RPC or something, okay. But like at least it should work by default the light client. The next thing is that try as much as possible to hide from the user everything that So don't leak into the user complex stuff that you can solve on your dApp. An example, and all of apps try to do that as much as possible. But there are certain platforms, I'm not going to name names, but like there's certain platforms that when you go and try to create a referendum or something, they ask you to create a pre-image, right? In most cases, the user shouldn't even know that there is a pre-image. The user shouldn't know what the pre-image is. Like in most cases, those referendums can actually, the code can be inlined. You don't even need the pre-image, right? But like many times we are a little bit lazy and we try to map one-to-one the actions that we have to do on chain to what the user has to do. We have to try harder to encapsulate these and to hide this complexity from the user and to manage it ourselves, right? Like this is, and that's why we have the SDKs. And if our SDKs are not good enough and not hiding, are still leaking stuff, just let us know. We'll improve them, right? But these like put yourself, like think from the point of view of the user and look at what you have at your disposal and try to find the best way to use the tools that you can use, utility badge, but like to make it as simple as possible to the user, right? Yeah, for me, like these are the main things when building with adapt for Polkadot. These are the things that I yeah.
Resilience and abstract complexity from the user and simplify for the user.
Yes. Personally, these are the things that I think they tend to use. Like a lot of times people put a lot of effort, like, oh, we need better user experience. 99% of the not so good user experience that we have is because 0.2 of what you had there, not because we don't have enough. My personal opinion, no, not because we don't have enough. I don't know, fancy UIs. It's because of point number 2, right? Mm-hmm. So just focus on, and most importantly, okay, so I'm going to, if I'm derailing, let me know. But most importantly, if you see that there is an opportunity, okay, I'm going to, can I share my screen one moment?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, how can I do that? By the way,
the center, there's the arrow up.
Yeah, okay. So not too long ago, I created a forum post, not this one. Okay, this one, remote proxies for everyone, right? Like this is showcasing a simple SDK. Well, an SDK that makes it simple to create like a remote proxy transaction. And it kind of builds on top of a blog post that Basti created. But as you can see, like the code that he was suggesting for creating a remote proxy was quite complex. And here I explained that it also had its caveats. So I kind of created an SDK to kind of simplify that. Okay, that's cool and all. But one of the things that I'm most excited about this is not only that we were able to create this SDK, but that we were also able to bring sorry, one moment, here, that we were able to bring feedback upstream to make an improvement to the way that the remote proxy palette works. Mm-hmm. So like you can see here, like, so this is important sometimes. Like, okay, like if you see that things can be done better, maybe it's not for everyone, but even if you don't have the insight, like just bring it up upstream, because sometimes certain things can be, and this got like actually good reception and stuff. So yeah, like sometimes maybe I want to phrase a little bit here, but like I think it's important that in Polkadot, like we try to think in a way that is more user-centric, and whenever we find that perhaps our runtime code makes it difficult to abstract things from the user, maybe talk with people that can understand the problem and come with a better solution. Because I assure you, like everyone, every single, like all the important, like this, protocol developers, when we explain these things to them, they are very open to making improvements in that regard. So anyway, so that was, sorry if I derailed a little bit.
Let me piece things a little bit together for our audience. So we're talking about the tips that we want to give you guys regarding, what is it you need to think about when you're building front-end applications and UIs and stuff. And Joseph's response was, care about the actual resilience, the Web3 values behind what it is you're building. That should be number one. And in his opinion, I agree. I'm also of that same opinion. It might not be everyone's opinion, but number two, I think, is something that no matter what, like, should be your main priority, and that's abstract the difficult stuff away from the user as much as possible. Simplify for the user. Make it easy for the user to just get it and just to do one transaction and get to their goal. Now, in that second part, it's true that if you're just developing an app, like, that should be a consideration. It's true that, like, that should be just, you should do your best with what you have. But a place like Polkadot that is so much on the cutting edge, there's so much that can actually be improved. It's also a place whereby, instead of maybe banging your head around using the existing infrastructure, you might be in a place to say, hey, like, listen, guys, we need to actually fix the infrastructure to make it much better for the user. And you know what? You, as the person developing the front end, are probably in the best place to make those arguments and trying to push for change. And what Joseph was showing is that there are some, like, fundamental things inside of the infrastructure level in the Polkadot ecosystem that can be improved. And it is through discussions, through open source rhetoric, and hearing people's opinions and experiences that these changes get put in place.
Exactly what you said. Right? Like, many times, it's exactly what you said. Protocol developers, they put a solution there, but they need from our feedback, right? Like, they also need for us to actually use this in the way that it was intended. And if things are not as, they don't work as nicely for the user as they thought first, that's why we have the chance to improve these, right? So those are my 2 cents. I think that we need a little more of these kind of upstream feedback. But yeah, that's
and a hackathon is actually a perfect place to hopefully see more feedback to core protocol developers, because people will be banging their heads against trying to do something that is just not intuitive. I want to say to the audience, like, this kind of second area of trying to push for improvements is probably a little bit more advanced. I mean, Joseph, you did very fairly say anyone can have an opinion and jump into these GitHub repos or issues, but it's probably not going to be for your average, like, I just want to have fun during this 3-day hackathon. But guys, we are reserving 2 of the prizes for advanced developers, people that have more than 3 years experience hacking, people that have multiple hackathons behind their belt. And we are reserving 2 prizes for beginners, precisely for this reason, because there is somewhat of a separation of developers that are going to be or going to require to be a lot more in depth, kind of in the submarine on like the types of things that they're building, and like how they might want to bring change, like what we were describing in the Polkadot ecosystem, for example, by proposing things. So don't get don't get scared about this conversation. I just want to make sure that our audience is not like being like, well, I'm never gonna like get into GitHub repo and like exchange with Basti on a topic. That's not the expectation here. But it is an interesting piece to add that, like, yes, you as a hacker, as a developer in the ecosystem, and the hackathon being an opportunity to try new things and break things, it's an open canvas, right, for you, and we encourage you to have these discussions.
And if I may add something very short, is that in fact, like at least many developers at PAPI, they want to use these kind of hackathons precisely to receive feedback, and they will be on top and looking at what we're doing to get this kind of feedback. So yeah, but as you said, like these shouldn't be the main your main motivation. Yeah. Anyways, so.
So I mean, this has been a really interesting discussion. We're already at 44 minutes, and I had told you guys maximum 45. I do still want to leave now the remaining of the time to dive into what hackers at this hackathon need to know when they're building front ends for Ink smart contracts. So a reminder, guys, we have a bounty of $10,000 where the Ink team has prepared specific things to do. Now, it is in your interest to include those in your main track submissions, and it is probably in your interest to build front ends for them. So Victor, why don't you take it away? I'm going to share my screen with the docs, and we dive into what you've been preparing for addressing this gap, which is, PAPI is actually designed more for blockchains, right? It's more, initially its design is around pallets and stuff like that, but it also can interact with smart contracts. But I think it is relatively new that you have this Ink SDK thing. So why don't you step us through the Ink SDK and like the documentation that you have here on Ink, and let me know what you should be showing the audience.
So yeah, as you have introduced, like PAPI essentially is just like connecting to a blockchain and then talking with pallets and so on, right? And then there are two sets of palettes related to Ink. There's the contracts palette and there's the revive palette. So contracts is for version 5 of Ink and previous, and revive is the new thing, which runs on Polka VM and so on, which is Ink version 6 and later. So first of all, of course, you need to decide which contract you will have to use. So to build a contract, exactly, you have this documentation right here that will you get up and running. But once you have a contract deploy, it's like, how do I now interact with this contract? So if you were to use,
I want to say, Victor, we are kind of keeping it simple, and it's going to be contracts with Ink v6, right? So let's forget about the WebAssembly palette contract stuff.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. So the thing is that how do you interact with this contract from your dApp now? So if you were to use the bare bones PAPI library, essentially, you would connect to the chain, and then you would have to talk with the revive palette, and you would see that there's some runtime APIs there that you have to use, and you have to encode the messages and so on. And this is where this low-level Ink library that we have here, so you have Polkadot API Ink, would come into play. But this is a bit more advanced. We really do not recommend using this in the hackathon because it's a bit more low level, right? You have to work with encoders and decoders and so on. It's not extremely developer friendly in this way. So, but essentially, this is how you would work without the SDK itself.
Okay.
So exactly, if we go to the PAPI SDK on Ink, so that one simplifies it.
Cool. What we're looking at here, it's the kind of general. It's the unrefined, unpackaged, it's not. You guys aren't taking care of DevX. You're just saying this is how it works. Version of PAPI.
So I don't know if the audience can see here the code here, but essentially, you with this Ink client, you essentially create the codec for one specific interaction, and then you have to call yourself the palette that you want, encoding the messages and decoding them and so on. Which is it's not great. This library is more meant for low-level tooling. If you're building something. Exactly, dev tools, things like that, then that's probably a better solution because then you have more control over what you want to do with that.
So TLDR, guys, don't go on this page. It's going to distract you. Get right onto Ink SDK page.
Ink SDK. This is the one that makes dApp development easier when you're building something with Ink. So cool. Exactly, if you can see here, we have a getting started page where it just runs you through an example. In this case, it's using an Ink version 5, but it's the same. It's the exact same flow for Ink version 6. So you can just grab an Ink version 6 deployment contract, and then and the only difference is that instead of doing, if you scroll a bit further down, just a tiny bit, you will see that there's a creating SDK function, instead of create inc, now it's create revive SDK, because it's using the revive palette. That's the only difference. But all of the functions, all of the flow is exactly the same. And with this, like you can see that you can define your contracts and so on, and then say that you want to deploy a contract. So how do you do that? Well, you grab the SDK and you just say like get deployer, and here's my code, and now you can deploy contracts by your own, right? You can see here that it's just like a function that will deploy the contract. So contract deployer deploy with these parameters, it gives you back a transaction, and then you can sign this transaction, and the contract is deployed. Cool. So it's much easier. Like you don't have to think about the terms of like the palette. Like if you look at the palette, you have to estimate the weight, and there are so many things that you have to do when building that, and then encode and decode the messages and so on. Like this, you don't have to do anything for that.
So the deployer, you've abstracted away some things. Can you just tell us what you've abstracted away? I feel like the storage deposit is taken care of.
Exactly. So there's the storage deposit that you have to estimate, and that's been taken care of. Of course, like you can also set as a limit. Like there's a parameter of saying like, okay, do not send any transaction that will have a storage deposit higher than that, and but that's an option which is optional. But also the weight of the transaction is another thing that has to be estimated, and this is also done. And the outcome of the transaction and the address that this contract will get deployed to, it's also not non-trivial, because especially with Palette Revive, the way that they have done the transactions, it's a bit hard. But like in here, you just get back one property, which is like deployed address, and you have like the address that the contract is deployed. And then, of course, encoding and decoding messages, which is also something that you have to do if you are using the low-level inc library, essentially. So you can see that then we go on the querying messages and sending messages, and it's more or less the same as the API is more or less the same as deploying. So it's like, oh, I want to query. In this case, it's a PSP22 contract, so the balance of Alice. And so, you create your query, and then, you get back the result. And if the result is success, then you have the value of that.
Mm-hmm. And it's strongly typed, right?
Exactly. Like this is extremely typed. Like even like here, you can see that this is like query PSP22 balance of. This is a string, but this string is also strongly typed. So as you type it in, then you will see how it suggests you all of the messages that this contract supports, so that you don't have to look at the contract documentation. Like you just have it here with IntelliSense, which is also really nice.
Mm-hmm. That's nice. So yeah, you can. I wish I had something prepared to just showcase a little bit here, but yeah, once you have your contract. So basically, how it works is you tell PAPI to generate the interface of your contract, right, in the same way that it generates descriptors, and then in your whatever your project, your React component or whatever. You have access to all the functions of your contract.
Exactly. If we go up to the top again, like because that's where this part is explained on the getting started section. Yeah, there it is. So you can see here that first is doing pnpm PAPI add Paseo POP. So this is just like adding the POP network so that you can connect to it, and then it's doing PAPI inc add, and then it's adding the metadata for this contract. So this is what reads the metadata, gets all of the types, and generates all of the descriptors for that. And then if you scroll to the next snippet where we are initializing, so here you can see that first we create the client, this is the PAPI client, and then the typed API, and then we have this creating SDK that is using first like the typed API itself. So this is how the SDK communicates with the chain, but then also the contracts PSP22, and this is passing the metadata, but also the types of this contract, so that everything is fully typed and you get everything you need.
Cool. Nice. Well, again, guys, like the docs look super clean. I think, I mean, audience, I'm talking to the audience. I always switch. But yeah, to the audience, check out these docs. Like, have a gander before the hackathon. Maybe like try a few things out. Also, Victor and Joseph, you guys are gonna be there, right?
Yes. So we will be around if you need any, if you have any question, then we're surely there and we're happy to help on what we can. And also, just to mention, like in these docs, there's a link to an example of it's just like, so it's
this one?
Yes, you can find the example in the Ink SDK repo. So here you can find exactly. So if you go to, well, you can see here that there's two folders, contracts and source. So contracts is the actual contracts that the examples are using. And in source, we have two different examples. We have one for Ink version 5, which is the old one, and another for Ink version 6, which is the new Polka VM and so on.
Wait, how do I get the Ink version 6 one? Is it a branch?
Well, it's inside. So if you go to source, you will see it's the Flipper one. So PSP22 is the version 5. And this one, it's a bit more simple because I couldn't find a better example on back when I did this. I couldn't find any better example on Ink version 6 because it was extremely new back when I did this. But essentially here you have everything like, how do I deploy a contract? Here you have an example. How do I query message? How do I query for storage and so on?
Handle events. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like the happy path of everything, but it gets you started on something that, I just want to see this running, and so you can try it out here.
Cool. I'm gonna try this out myself to
Nice.
be prepared. Let me get this off. Okay, so that's. Do you guys want to add anything on any tips with using the Ink SDK? I think we covered everything that people need to know, but maybe there's some last little nuggets you want to share.
Well, especially regarding Revive, so you can see here at the last point of the documentation is like Revive shenanigans. So this is also something that, as Joseph mentioned before, that we also try to make the palette better. So we have given a lot of feedback to the palette, and they have actually added a change that will make this easier. So at the moment, it's a bit hard to work with a palette Revive, but there's an update that maybe it has been already deployed to West, and I have to check. But essentially, it will simplify a bit more. But again, like this is not something. Once that is like deployed everywhere, then we will just update the Ink SDK, so that it works a bit better with that. But
yeah, that's these fundamental. It's the accounts are different, and
yes.
I was working on it, and it's not just accounts; it's something else too in Revive versus contract.
Yes. Also,
balances are not the same type either.
Yeah. Also, something that many people first is like, oh, what's happening here? Why it's not working? Is because when you want to interact with any contract, first you have to map your account. So you have to call a specific function. It's really simple. It's just like a transaction that you call. That it is a revive.map account, I think. And once you do that, then your account is mapped. Now you can do whatever with contracts.
Why do we need to do that?
It's because Revive focuses on EVM compatibility, and EVM works with another set of account IDs, right? Like the Ethereum ones, and then you have to map between one to the other. And so the palette needs to know, okay, this Ethereum account is actually the account for this SS58. Or Polka.
Yeah. So now I understand the purpose, but it seems very clunky.
Yeah.
So right now, actually, in the deployment stuff, have you abstracted that away?
Not really, because it's something that is quite hard to abstract in this sense. Like if we find a way of like making it easier to that you just have it done automatically, but it's a bit harder because this is one transaction that users have to do at the very beginning, and then you're set up for life. So it's a bit hard to to set it up.
Yeah, it's true.
Hmm.
Cool. Yeah, no, I've been tinkering with doing some stuff with ink, and because like what's really exciting here for the audience, the Canary network, Polkadot's Canary network, Kusama, currently has live a virtual machine that basically accepts Solidity smart contracts as well as Ink smart contracts. It's actually based in RISC-V. It's all the hype in the Ethereum world. It's already live on Polkadot. And so what I'm hoping to see is a lot of people are actually deploying to this infrastructure using Ink v6 and building full dApps using PAPI also. So I think the audience should just be aware that like this is cutting edge. This is very new stuff. The PAPI team have done an amazing job just catching up to having something ready for this hackathon for anyone right now that wants to do stuff with Ink v6 and Palette Revive, but just tread with caution, knowing that there might be things missing. There might be developer experience things to be improved on always, but especially for this. So yeah, I think we spoke about the tips for the hackathon. We spoke about what you guys are working on. We spoke about this, which is very important for anyone that's going to be there. You guys are also hackers. You are maybe semi-mentors. If people come and have questions for PAPI stuff, I'm sure you'd be happy to answer.
Absolutely, yeah. But
yeah, I think I want to wrap up with just a little bit of hype around the hackathon. We will have another stream on Friday where we actually we're going to be talking about the marketing bounty. I need to close this. And yeah, guys, did you know this? We're having a marketing bounty? No.
I had no idea.
Yeah, no idea. So like I said in the beginning of the stream, guys, like always the information is all going to be on the Luma, so keep kind of checking that periodically. But we have from the beginning announced that, so basically we have you guys know how we have the 20K main track, but we also have a 5K marketing bounty. And so what we decided is, or what we realized is, a lot of us nerdy developers are really, really bad at marketing. So we might need some help. And so essentially this, we're going to be talking about it on Friday, but there's a bounty for like people that are just dedicated to helping projects come up with a really good marketing strategy. And yeah, now you guys know. What do you guys think? It's fun, no? Yeah, I think our goal is really to kind of connect people, connect technologies, and then break things and ship things.
Exactly.
Is there any last words you want to leave the audience with?
I was just looking forward to meeting you all at the hackathon. Sure, looking forward to it.
I like the spirit. I like the spirit. Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys in Berlin. Thank you so much for the time that you've put coming on the stream, sharing your experiences, and also giving tips for building with PAPI. I look forward to seeing you and seeing what you guys build. Do you guys have any ideas of what you want to build so far?
No, I've been, I don't know. Like I have a few ideas, but I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure. I don't know. There's one thing that I don't know how to make it happen, but currently Smalltalk doesn't work with Hyperbridge because Hyperbridge uses a different hash. Well, it's just like not a different, like uses Kekakan, and right now the chain specs cannot pass the hashing function. So I had an idea. I don't know. Like I have an idea. Like I would like to basically, number one, make Smalltalk work with Hyperbridge, which is not super difficult, and I have an idea of something that we could do on top of that if we want to make it work. Like maybe something along those lines, just because like it seems unfair that if we compete on the ink and we've done the ink SDK, it seems like we have an unfair advantage. So I don't know if we were supporting people doing that. I'm not sure. Like we still have to decide. I don't know. Yeah,
Well,
we'll see.
that sounds like a cool idea. It sounds like it's probably something you've been thinking about for some time, and the hackathon is a perfect place for you to try it out.
Yeah.
I think that's the spirit. I think, if we can leave something for the audience, like that's the kind of mindset. Go into this hackathon with some ideas you might want to build, some things you might be curious and learning about. It is all about learning and trying new things, but hopefully trying things that you're going to continue working on post hackathon. Victor, are you excited about building anything in particular? Do you have any thoughts on what you want to build?
The moment, not currently. Like I still need to think about it. Like I'm also a bit excited for Ink version 6 and see what can be done there. But I still have to to think about some topics.
Cool. Well, I look forward to seeing what you cook up. Whether or not you're the same team, it seems like maybe have different ideas. That could be interesting. You can compete. Okay. Well, I'm gonna pull you guys off the stream. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm gonna wrap up with some closing notes. We'll see you in Berlin. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
All right, that is the wrap for our stream of our Tuesday, the third stream we did leading up to the hackathon. So I hope that this was a useful piece, a useful resource for all of you, and for all of you that are planning to come. For all of you that haven't maybe decided on coming to Berlin next week for the hackathon, please check out our Luma calendar, our Luma event page that I've shared. And just also know that we do have some scholarships for students in the country, in Germany, and some small travel bursaries, I think, that are also given out on a case-to-case basis. So we have our applications live. Check out our chat that I shared with you in the beginning. That's on Telegram. You can find the group dedicated to the Blockspace Synergy Hackathon. So on Friday, we're going to be streaming again, and we will be talking more about bounties, about the partners involved, and hopefully then we will have a confirmed the new partner and to be able to talk about their bounty. I have done a little sneak peek leak of information, but I think it's totally fine to say that Super Team Germany, that's the representatives of Solana, are also participating as a partner and putting in $2,500 of bounties. So stay tuned to and come to our stream on Friday to stay tuned and learn more about what those bounties are, including the marketing bounty. With that being said, thank you so much for being here. I hope this was useful, and you have a great